we're going to talk about shaping a behavior. So this looks like, you're going to get a really good idea of what this looks like when you see the DRR video. But this is essentially what we're using in training as a tool all the time to shape our dog's behavior from something we don't want to something we do want, or from a neutral position to something we do want. So it's really the process of establishing this goal behavior we have in mind. So in this example, I'm using the goal of, I'd really love for my dog to go lay down in their bed for 5 seconds when I say the word bed. So what's the first step to starting that process if I'm letting my dog sort of figure this out in free behavior and I'm not even saying the word bed yet? The first step would be my dog looking at their bed. So the second they look at their bed, I'd mark yes, and then I'd reward them probably in their bed. Now, this is something you could also cheat, and there's no cheating in training. If it works, it works. But putting some food in your dog's bed to get them interested in the bed ahead of time would be a really good way to speed this process up. But the idea I'm trying to get here is that we're trying to reward all these little things along the way that take our dog from, laying down in the kitchen to wanting to go lay down in their bed, because that's where they get rewarded. So the first step is them looking at the bed, and then we're going to use successive approximations along the way to step us toward that goal behavior. So what this looks like, and yeah, this is not like the most amazing diagram, but our first approximation, our dog looks at the bed and we mark yes and reward. The second approximation, maybe our dog thinks about going towards the bed and they sort of lean towards it. We mark yes and reward. This is how small your approximations can be. Now, if your dog's really starting to get it and they're going right in their bed, then you reward for those things, right? But I just want you to get an idea of how small and tiny you can kind of break these things up. So maybe the third approximation is your dog takes one step towards the bed. You mark yes and reward. And then we don't know how many, approximations, depends on the dogs. That's this X number of approximations. We'd keep taking these little steps until the dog reaches the goal behavior of 5 seconds on the bed. So maybe they take 2 steps, then 3 steps. Now they're on the bed with 1 foot, and then they're on the bed with 2 feet and 3 feet, 4 feet. Now they're hanging out on the bed. Maybe they're kind of sticky to the bed, so they're standing on it for longer periods. Then we would shape laying down. So that's where you'd get into shaping, getting more relaxed on the bed. And then you would add the duration of relax on the bed for 5 seconds. So this is actually a lot of little steps in this process. And it can feel a little overwhelming, I think, when you first learn about shaping. You think, oh my gosh, these things are going to take me forever. But you'll be amazed at how quickly your dog just picks up on this stuff. So don't pay attention to the yellow highlighted stuff just yet. Just remember that shaping is the process of going from this beginning behavior to a goal behavior you have in mind, and you're going to use all these little successive approximations along the way. These are each like little steps that you're marking and rewarding for to get you to your end goal, and that whole process is shaping. So a lot of times when we're shaping something, we start to wonder, okay, so how do I know, how many times do I mark and reward my dog for looking at the bed? Maybe they're not taking that step towards the bed. So how many times do I do that? Or am I only marking and rewarding them taking a step towards the bed, and now they're just, just like taking a step and then running to me for a treat? So how do you know when to go up in approximations, and how do you know when to go down? So that's where you'll get into this criterion versus criteria discussion. So if I go back to this, and we're looking at this highlighted, this yellow highlighted text, the criteria I have for the first approximation is that the dog looks at the bed. So if they do it, I mark yes and I reward them. And if they don't offer anything else, I'm going to get 3 good tries of this before moving on. So I'd say always try to get your criterion you have in mind 3 times before you move on, unless your dog is very quickly moving. So if they're already laying in their bed, or they're standing in their bed, then obviously this is going to, shift in a way. But sometimes if you're trying to get your dog to maybe your dog's hanging at the bed and they've got their nose and they're sniffing around in it, but they're not taking a step into the bed. So you would mark your dog sniffing the bed maybe 3 times, and then you're going to wait until they take another step or do some sort of weight shift towards the bed. Something else that is leaning towards that behavior that you're trying to go for, of getting them towards the bed. So just try to focus on one criterion at a time and try to get that like 3 times before moving up, unless your dog's already advancing very quickly. And if they're not getting there, so your dog's not taking that step in the bed, then you're going to make your approximation really small. So you're going to go back actually some steps. So maybe you're not even waiting for them to sniff at the bed anymore. Maybe you're just waiting for them to kind of look at the bed again and get them to interact with it in some way. So that's how you're going to know when to go up and down. So those are all examples of, like small criterion that we're doing. And then overall, our criteria is that the dog can lay down in the bed for 5 seconds in a quiet environment with no distractions. So now if I've have all these little criterion for teaching my dog to lay down in the bed for 5 seconds, and I'm doing that in my home where it's quiet, once they can do that well, scoring like a 9 or 10 in the grade school, the scoring rubric, then I can up their grade school level, up my criteria. Can you go lay in your bed for 5 seconds when I pick up your toy? Can you do it then? So that would be my new criteria. So remember to keep, one criterion per an approximation. Once your dog can successfully score a 9 or 10 at each approximation or at each criteria level, then you can move on, and you should move on, or you're going to keep your dog trapped in first grade. If your dog moves faster than you thought, then start to speed up. Sometimes smarter dogs can be the hardest because we start to fall behind them. So you really need to kind of match your pace to your dog's. So if they start moving faster, then, you got to start moving faster too. If they lose interest, so if they just walk away from their bed and they don't care anymore, if they become frustrated, they're barking at you a whole bunch, they're like pawing and rolling around and getting kind of crazy. Maybe they're even getting kind of mouthy. That's all like frustration typically. Or they're really not, making that extra step that you're waiting for. That's when you want to go back in approximations. Get them really successful at those lower things so that they gain confidence and interest in what you're doing, and then move your bar slowly up again. So in terms of relaxation, which we're going to be getting into a lot with our training. So the criteria in terms of relaxation. So my dog is able to fully relax on his side when I bounce his tennis ball in the home. That would be a criteria that you're trying to meet. And if you're making that your criteria, your dog should have already succeeded at doing this in all the previous steps, right? So they already know how to relax on their side with nothing going on, and they know how to relax on their side when you're holding the tennis ball. So the bounce would be the next level. My dog is able to fully relax on his side when kids run by in the home would be another example, same thing. But if we're breaking down little criterion, so first approximation, my dog looks away from something they normally stare at. So in this first case, my dog is able to fully relax on his side when I bounce his tennis ball in the home. So my first criterion, I bounce the tennis ball and I'm waiting for my dog to look away. That's my first step. My second step might be I'm bouncing the ball, my dog sniffs the ground. I'm waiting him out for the sniff. Third approximation, my dog can, relax their tail. Maybe their tail gets really stiff when you bring the ball out. Fourth approximation, my dog lays down. These are all just like generalized, but that's sort of just an idea for you of how these things build and shape and how and when you move up and how and when you should move back. So this gets us into DRR, so differential reinforcement for relaxation. So this is really what we were talking about here. My dog is able to fully relax on his side. We're going to use the process of DRR to get your dog to a point like this. So when we're doing DRR, we're rewarding approximations of relaxation to teach our dog the process of relaxing in response to environmental cues or triggers. So we want to teach our dog that when changes happen or when random things happen, that's a cue to relax. So that's really handy for so many things. In most cases, you're going to be rewarding to your dog. So let's say your dog relaxes a little bit, you mark yes. You're going to toss treats to them. And usually you're going to toss them, especially in the beginning, a couple. So that's why I like Happy Howies, because you can cut them up really small. Because eating and consuming food helps our dogs relax. People can get really kind of backwards on this because they're like, my dog's acting crazy. Why would I reward him more? But actually, rewarding your dog more food will help them settle down faster because we're activating that seeking system when they're eating, and it's helping them relax and get out of that hyperactivity that they might be in. Remember, your dog's in free behavior during DRR, so we're not asking them to do anything. If they're in your house and there's a sound out the window and it makes them start barking, we're not saying, hey, stop, sit, get out of here. We're not yelling at them. We're not doing anything. We're just waiting for them to offer more relaxed behavior. And when they do, we're going to mark it and reward to them. So you're going to need to keep food on you at all times during training if you want your dog to always do this. If you want your dog to always relax, then you're going to want to keep your food on you. If you want your dog to only relax when you have a treat pouch on, then you won't have your treat pouch on, or you won't, have food on you. So that's really important in the beginning. It's not forever, but it's really important when you're starting training. So this is just a little example here. So this would be like we're saying a dog's in kindergarten and he's starting DRR. So let's say you have a 5-year-old dog. They just started learning DRR, but they're in kindergarten because they've never done this before. So just because they're 5 years old doesn't mean they're better at this. They hear the phone ring and they start barking and acting tense like the dog here. And then these are all the little approximations along the way. And so in this one, I'm looking at look away. I'm looking at sniffing here. I'm looking at he's searching for food longer. And then he's like choosing to lay down and rest. So this is, the beginning picture and the end picture. And we have criterion along the way. So looking away is my criterion here. Sniffing's my criterion here. Dog becomes quiet as he searches for food. So maybe he's like sniffing for longer here as a criterion. Sniffing for 3 seconds would be more specific. And then he goes from that to laying down, which is probably unlikely, but we're just kind of giving a general idea of what these steps look like. And as your dog does, each of these things, so this is an example of your criteria would be that my dog can relax when the phone rings. Which is actually a reasonable grade school level challenge. Actually, it's probably less of a kindergarten challenge. It's more like a middle school challenge for some dogs, but it depends on your dog. But you're going to raise your criteria as your dog gets better at these things. And the main thing with DRR is that we want to teach our dogs how to relax initially with nothing going on. And then we're going to start raising challenges for them so that they can get worked up and then relax and basically start working this muscle. Where they're understanding how to get really worked up and then relax. Alrighty, so I have a video on this, which you'll actually get to see it, and it'll be a little more clear. It'll also go into, how to do this whole process. But for now, your homework, make sure you complete these videos and paperwork. Start charging your marker word using the 6 things to mark and reward. Start DRR with your dog, which I said will follow with a video. Have treats ready for your homework and your training appointment. If you don't have treats, you're really going to have a hard time doing this training because that's pretty much all we're doing in the beginning. If your dog has any aggression, please let me know so I don't walk into your house and get bit. So please, let me know in your paperwork, or you can text me if you have any kind of special circumstances and we can make arrangements when I get there. But I'm super excited to meet you and your dog and can't wait to see you there.